As a massive manhunt continues for a Minnesota murder suspect, officials there and across the country are mourning the victims of yesterday's horrific politically motivated shooting. State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were shot and killed at their home in Brooklyn Park outside Minneapolis. And State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette are both hospitalized after being severely injured. Both lawmakers were members of Minnesota's Democratic Farmer Labor Party. State Senator Hoffman was elected in 2012. He has focused his legislative agenda on disability services and the needs of children and their families. State Representative Hortman served as the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives from 2019 to 2025. She was remembered by colleagues as a trailblazer who was, quote, an incredible leader who dedicated her life to public service and who had a determination to improve people's lives. Joining us now, Minnesota Congresswoman Kelly Morrison, who worked with both State Representative Melissa Hortman and State Senator John Hoffman for 6 years in the Minnesota State Legislature. Congresswoman, first, thank you so much for coming on today. One, we just want to check in on how you're doing. These are people you are close to, and also tell the folks who are watching who these folks were, especially Ms. Hortman.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to celebrate these tremendous lawmakers. You know, we're really still in shock here in Minnesota and grieving the loss of really one of our great ones. Melissa Hortman, I think, will go down as one of the most consequential speakers of the House in Minnesota history. She was a calm and graceful leader. She was full of integrity. She had an unsurpassed work ethic. She was salt of the earth, and she treated everyone she encountered with respect and dignity. And she loved our state like few people. She's dedicated her life to making the life better for the people of Minnesota. She was a mentor and a friend to me, and I'm devastated by the loss. And of course, John Hoffman, who we're praying for he and his wife Yvette's recovery. They also were gunned down. They both survived surgeries last night and were anxiously waiting news. But John's one of those guys that is beloved by everyone. He's the friendliest, most loving man, and you will not find a bigger advocate for people living with disabilities. So this is a shocking moment in Minnesota, and I think it's a watershed moment for our country.
You know, Congresswoman, I went to college in Minnesota. I went to Carleton College. I know not in your district. My in-laws have a lake home in Minnesota, so to me this feels like a tragedy in the family. I think we said in one of our teases in the last hour that you were on the list of names that the suspect had of people he was targeting. One, how are you in the middle of all this, especially since he is still at large? And two, how concerned are you for your safety and the safety of other elected officials in the state?
Well, you know, I'm an OBGYN by trade. I had the honor of taking care of patients in Minnesota for more than 20 years. So I understand, unfortunately, acutely how dangerous heated rhetoric can be. I am immensely grateful to local law enforcement here in Minnesota. They have been just doing incredible work. They're working overtime. I've got officers outside my home right now who have been up all night making sure that our communities are safe. And I particularly want to call out the Brooklyn Park Police Department, who acted so quickly in the middle of the night, and I'm certain saved more lives. We cannot tolerate heightened political rhetoric. This has to be a turning point for our country where we say this is not the America that we want. And I don't believe that this is the America that the vast majority of Americans want. We want to live peacefully. Most of us care about our neighbors, and we all want the same things, right? We have more in common than we don't. Everyone wants to be able to earn a living, take care of their families, be able to rest and enjoy. This is not what America is about. So I think this is a moment, and I think we saw this yesterday with millions of Americans taking to the streets peacefully, saying that we want our democracy. We don't want a king. We don't want a dictatorship. And so I'm hoping that we can model Melissa Hortman going forward, who was a calm and graceful leader who respected her political opponents and lifted up people coming behind her. She's dedicated her life to public servants. I came to politics later in my career, and she embraced me. She was a fierce advocate for reproductive rights and was excited that I was an OBGYN, a pro abortion rights OBGYN who wanted to run for the Minnesota House and helped to lead in that effort. We would not have passed all the legislation that we proudly call the Minnesota Miracle without Melissa Hortman, and I'm certain that Governor Walz would agree with that. We passed paid family leave. We passed comprehensive reproductive rights protections. We passed school meals, breakfast and lunch, so that no kid in Minnesota goes hungry. All of that would not have happened without the leadership of Melissa Hortman.
Congresswoman, I'm so glad that you told us more about your friend, because yesterday, in the aftermath of this tragedy, I watched some video of her speaking about her work and just the passion and how much she cared. And she was exactly the kind of person that you want to be in politics and you want to be looking after your interests as an American.
Right now, though, we have Minnesota Democratic Representative Angie Craig, who was close friends with the Minnesota House Speaker and her husband. And Congresswoman, I know you were with the Hortmans at that Minnesota House DFL event on Friday night. I send you my condolences, and how are you doing today?
Well, Alex, thank you for having me on. I think, we're all dealing with our own grief, personal devastation of having lost a friend and just a great human being in Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark. And of course, so grateful and have been praying that John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, survive. And we're thankful that it looks like they have. But Minnesota, we're struggling right now, but we're coming together as a community and just having the opportunity to talk about Speaker Hortman, to celebrate her as a person, first and foremost, and a member of our community, but also the extraordinary leader that she's been for the state of Minnesota over the course of these several years. I'm so proud to have been her friend, but Minnesota's going to miss her leadership for sure.
Can you tell me about Melissa and Mark? I mean, I'm curious what you'd want people to know about your friends.
Well, look, Melissa and Mark were, truly great people. I know they worked within our community. I have heard story again about Gilbert, their golden retriever, from so many people over the last several days of just thinking about this unspeakable tragedy. She had a heart. They had a heart of service to our community. And I think that's what's so difficult for so many of us to understand is just, someone who was so committed to making our community, our state, our country a better place. In the last several days, Melissa and I had been texting back and forth. There's a project I'm working on at the national level, and we could only have a few state leaders involved in it. And I texted her that I'd like to sit down this next week and get her involved in this project. So, it's just heartbreaking for our community and for so many of us that really considered her a dear friend.
Have investigators been able to brief you at all on their search for the suspect? If you were watching just prior to our coming to talk to you, it would seem there's certainly activity there in Sibley County.
Yeah, I think for those of us, we've been briefed routinely, I guess, by Capitol Police over the course of the last couple of days. We've been kept abreast of the investigation. Certainly not anything that we didn't need to know, but with 70 plus additional lawmakers being targeted, of course, I was on the phone almost all day yesterday with state representatives and senators and other Minnesota leaders just to talk through, and especially those who are on that list, if there's anything that I can do, just, give me a call, let's talk. And at the end of the day, I think, until this man is apprehended, the level of anxiety is going to be pretty high here.
How did we get to this place of elected officials being violently targeted? And how do we begin to tone down the heated political rhetoric that we now see in this country?
Well, Alex, I unfortunately, for the last several years, have been part of a Congress where we've seen increased threats to our offices, our staffs, our families, and ourselves. I think the political rhetoric continues to rise, but it didn't start in the last 48 hours. It has been rising alongside the political divisions that you've seen really rise in our nation. And so we got here one thing at a time where we are not civil to each other anymore. You even sit in committee hearings. I sat all day in the Oversight Committee last week, and I think we really have to look introspectively at who we are as a country. Each member of Congress, an elected official, must think very carefully about the words that we use. And
right-wingers are furious. Trump and MAGA, they're furious. They might not be saying it in public, but they are saying it behind the scenes, at least in their minds. Because this shooter is clearly one of theirs. I talked about it last night. His roommate, according to local news from the area, they went to his place, they spoke to his roommate, and his roommate said he's a Trump voter, he's a Trump supporter. We've seen clips of him as a right-wing evangelical. Again, of course, not all Christians are dangerous, and not all Christians are even Republicans. Some of them are leftists, not just liberals, but socialists, right? But this guy wasn't. This guy was clearly pushing a far-right Christian nationalist agenda. And critically, if you look at the list of people that he wanted to hurt after, they were Democrats. So what police have uncovered and pieced together so far, and they don't know everything yet, is that this guy was MAGA. He was. Not all MAGAs are like him, necessarily, but this guy was MAGA. To the core. And he was trying to help usher in the world Donald Trump wants. And he thought he would do it at the barrel of a gun. And again, the right-wing lies were also exposed by police and also by other reporters as well, saying that, oh, they targeted this one Democratic lawmaker because she voted against a particular bill that the rest of the Democrats supported. But that's false, because one, this lady, despite casting one vote with Republicans, was the reason, or one of the major reasons, that Democrats passed so much progressive legislation in Minnesota. You know, Minnesota's been getting a lot of coverage for all the good things they've been doing. Probably the most effective progressive state in the country, more effective than deep blue states like California and New York at actually passing progressive policies. Well, it's because she was the Speaker in the House, ushering it all through. Like, she was the quarterback. Tim Walz gets credit, deservedly so, but she was in the trenches. And the other person that was shot, he didn't vote with the Republicans. So this idea that it's an attack on by the left is ridiculous. Remember this. Everybody on the list could be classified as left-wing, whether a Democrat or in the left of the spectrum. Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, everybody. The police and other reports so far have exposed Trumpism.